I used to look forward to work each day. Now I'm struggling to get my day started. I am constantly distracted. I don't get the satisfaction from work that I used to. And I know I'm not alone. One of the top questions that I've gotten this year is, how do I know when it's time to move on from a job? It's a question I've had to answer for myself this year. In this video, I'm going to help you answer this question for yourself, and more importantly, help you discover what to do next. Chances are, if you're asking yourself if it's time for you to leave your job, it's time to leave your job. But knowing that answer and having the confidence to act on that answer are two very different things. Luckily, there are 5 signals that will help you validate your decision to move on from your job, whether that's moving on, moving up, or moving elsewhere in the organization. For starters, you can do your job in your sleep. You should expect for elements of your job to be somewhat boring. After all, no one ever is enthusiastic about going through their emails. But you've reached a point where there is no challenge and no excitement in your day-to-day work, except for perhaps to your patients. You could have the most thrilling job in the world, but at some point, every job becomes monotonous. The enthusiasm you once had for your job has vanished, leaving you disengaged and uninspired. There are several things that can trigger the onset of boredom at a job, but the main one for me, and I suspect the main one for you, comes down to the second signal that you're ready to move on from your job. When you started your job, there was a lot to learn. There was the actual job, and even if it was something you were doing previously and had a handle on, there was still systems and processes and whatnot. It's likely that you have been setting goals and achieving them up until the point that you found yourself in this professional limbo. The growth opportunities at this point are narrow. You've reached the point that in order to continue growing, you need to move up, but one of 3 things is in the way. First, there are no growth opportunities where you're at. Whether it's because your company's growth has stagnated or maybe is even going through a contraction, the opportunities for you to advance are extraordinarily limited there. Next, there just might not be a growth path for you. This one stings, and it's one that I have seen so many ambitious professionals struggle against. It is one of the key things that I work with my clients on, because when it is happening, we need to acknowledge that it is happening so that we can make decisions accordingly. Finally, you might see that there are growth opportunities there, and you know they are available to you, but they might not be aligned with the timeline in which you want to achieve them. Which brings me to the next signal that it's time for you to move on from your job. The next signal that it's time for you to leave your job is one that I don't see being discussed anywhere. Your energy is not being matched. There are 2 phases you are going to vacillate between across your entire career: growth and coast. In our current social construct, the overarching expectation that most people experience is to remain in growth mode constantly. You're always supposed to be working towards the next achievement, the next promotion, the next pay increase. There will be times in your career that getting to that next level, or increasing your income, or even just getting more responsibility and recognition is going to be a priority. However, the growth phase is not sustainable across your entire career. Most people will spend 30 to 40 years of their lives working. With changes in economic situations, life expectancies, and the likelihood that Social Security will all be gone by the time millennials retire, let alone Gen Z, it's likely that many people in our generations are going to work even longer. Growth phases of our career must be offset by coast phases. There are going to be times that you choose this coast phase, but there might be other times where you are forced into it. For example, over the last year, we saw mass layoffs in tech, which took a lot of ambitious young professionals away from growth mode, where they were looking to get promotions or looking to get a pay raise, and forced them into a coast mode where they were just looking for the next job that was going to pay them the same amount. Whether you are in a growth phase or a coast phase, your energy needs to be matched by your organization. We've talked about being ready to move up, but not having the opportunity to in your organization. But that's not the only time that you might find your energy being mismatched. There will be times in your life where work is the least important thing going on, where you want a job that you can just simply go in and clock out. However, if you have a boss or a company who has higher demands than that, that is going to be an energetic misalignment. For the last couple of years, I actually chose to enter a coast phase, and I've only been working part-time. I wanted to spend time with my kids before they got too old and too cool to hang out with me. In addition, the last year, every time I've thought about restarting a growth phase, a whole bunch of stuff has happened in my personal life that made it impossible. But now, as things are settling down and my kids have gotten older, I am preparing to once again enter a growth phase. And doing what I was doing before isn't matching the energy that I want to bring into it. That said, I cannot talk about matching energy without talking about the next signal that it's time for you to leave your job. Let's just talk about this head on. Money matters. One of the things that I have been so happy to see over the last few years is a growing awareness about the fact that job hopping pays. And I'm here for that. There is nothing wrong with figuring in the financials when it comes to your career decisions. Whether you love your job or you hate your job, you do it to get paid. While the average salary increase was 4.4% in 2023, the average increase when changing jobs was 14.8%, which is to say, if you have been at the same company for the last few years, there's a strong chance that you would make more if you changed jobs. And if you're undervalued at your current job, there are absolutely greener pastures out there. On the flip side, and I know a lot of you are not going to see this as a problem, but I assure you, it is a very difficult problem to navigate. You might be shackled by the golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs are so hard to unlock because you know that when you leave that position at that company, it is very unlikely that the next opportunity is going to be able to match your level of income and compensation. This is something that I faced when I was actually transitioning out of my corporate career. I walked away from a lot of easy mid-six-figure opportunities. But in order to do that, I had to be at the point where the financial considerations weren't my priority, but also that I was in a place that I was prepared to take that hit. Which brings me to the next sign that it's time for you to move on. You are a dynamic individual who is evolving all the time. Your interests, your goals, and your priorities are changing. For instance, perhaps you took the job that you're in because it paid you significantly more money than your last one, but now your priorities have shifted and having more work-life balance is more important to you. If recalibrating the time that you spend at work isn't possible, then in order to live aligned with your new priority, some changes are going to need to be made. Where I have been personally feeling this one, and let me know in the comments if you relate, my interests have changed. My mission is to disrupt workplace culture and to help create a more equal playing field. For the last 4 years, I have created hundreds of videos to help individuals do that to create a ripple effect in our world. But at this point, I feel like I've covered the entire surface and maintaining the status quo is starting to feel repetitive. Which brings me to the only conclusion I can arrive to based on all of these facts. I can't do this anymore. I have to quit. That leaves the question, what do I do next? Over the last few months, I have been working through this, and there have been 3 key questions to help me figure it out. And I know they're going to help you as well. Start by asking yourself, what is my UAQ? Your UAQ is going to represent what is working and where your potential is. It's a concoction of your skills and abilities, what you're known for, and your interests. And this is going to be key in guiding you into what your next step should be. If you are in a transitional phase in your career and you are either looking to make a change in your career path or move up in your career, your UAQ is going to help you map your way there. Getting clear on what your UAQ is and how it aligns with that next step is key in getting you there. I could talk for ages about how important your UAQ is, but what is much more meaningful is for you to take the time to identify what your UAQ is, which you can do for free when you download my free UAQ starter kit. Of course, I don't just talk about UAQ. Reviewing my UAQ was the first step that I took in my journey. After attending a conference a few weeks ago, I ended up taking an entire day inventorying elements that would help me evolve my UAQ into this next step. But before I refined it, I wanted to make sure that it was perfectly aligned with work that I would enjoy. So the next thing that I considered was this. Before you move forward, you need to be clear on the source of your dissatisfaction. This is easy to do when you have an awful boss or you're working at a toxic company. It's much more challenging when everything is just fine on paper, which is where I've been at. It took me a while to understand the source of my dissatisfaction, professionally speaking, and it really came down to two things. First, while I am incredibly superficial about how I work, really I am so vain, I do not thrive in superficial conversations. As an introvert, I am essentially only happy when we are going deep. If we are not talking about your childhood trauma or the meaning of life, I'm not interested. I think the videos that I have made on this channel are important, and I am proud of them. However, many of them feel like they're on that superficial level. While not everything has to be that deep, and sometimes there is merit in packaging things in a way that are more digestible as a way of more effectively communicating these deeper concepts, I'm just not vibing with it anymore. And the more that I talk to the Career Bestie community, the more I realize we all want to get below the surface, and that you would prefer to go deeper with me. The second thing is incredibly practical and something that I still feel very uncomfortable discussing, but I'm gonna go for it. This is also the thing that is going to determine if I can do what I want to do next. My monetization strategies have been almost non-existent. Since 2020, I have essentially relied on ad revenue in order to maintain my revenue and my business. But considering everything we've just talked about, I need to do a lot better than that. I need to hire people in order to produce the content that I want to produce. And frankly, my business is not registered as a nonprofit. That is not what I'm trying to do here. And to achieve my goals both personally and professionally, I need to substantially increase revenue. Which brings me to the final question. What do you want your next chapter to look like? This includes your life, where you want to live, the type of work you want to do. In my next video, you're going to see how I failed miserable at big goals and a lifelong dream that I had this year. But that doesn't mean that I've given up. Honestly, I've been holding myself back a lot, and I had to unpack a bunch in order to admit it. Next year, my top priority is going to be building my speaking and training business. I have been a speaker and trainer for more than 16 years, and enabling success and creating eureka moments has always been a pinnacle of my UAQ. So I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself here. I have started booking engagements for 2024. If your company is looking for a speaker to help elevate teams, leadership, and work culture, I am available. But I know that brings forward a question. If speaking and training is my priority, where does that leave my channel? Where do we go from here, Career Besties? As I considered this, I visited the growing list of video ideas that I have been building over the last few years. And as I went through this process and I got into the final stages, it really just poured out of me. Everything came together in a way that made so much sense. I am a disruptive information seeker. I am a social scientist with a squirrel brain who loves jumping down rabbit holes with an open mind and doing a non-judgmental analysis to connect the micro and macro level dots. First, this made me realize that I needed to relaunch the Career Bestie Insider, which is my weekly newsletter. It is the best place for me to go deep because it is where I can say things and share things that I can't talk about publicly. I send it every Sunday, and my goal is to make it a destination in your inbox, which brings me here to my channel. When I started this channel, my goal was to change the world. That's what I want my videos to do. So you're gonna see a change here. There are going to be deep dives into the issues that have a profound effect on you at work, some that you might not even be aware of. We are going to challenge norms that have gone unquestioned, and we're going to talk about real ways that we can make changes in our work and in our lives. I am really excited for this shift, and I hope you're subscribed to join me in this next era. But in the meantime, YouTube thinks that we need to talk about this next.